Hello YouTube, looks like we're online. So today's show topic is selling experiences. So if you've been looking at business, a lot of stuff lately, you've probably come across this word experiences. Sometimes it'll be in the context of, like, I'm going to do a quick search here. Let's look at things versus experiences. And I'm probably going to get a bunch of hits talking about how, why experiences are better than things. Let's take a look at some of these top hits that are coming up just to frame the discussion we're having today. I want to bring some context to say these. I'm not just pulling ideas out of a hat, but rather I'm talking about, you could say, popular or pretty mainstream ideas that are found all over the place, and then I'm trying to give my own independent analysis on this stuff and get your feedback as well, because it's like we pick up a magazine and we could talk about what we see together. Oh no, a paywall. Am I going to try to do some crazy browser hacks to get around this? Alright, Forbes, I'm not going to look at your article because you're at the forefront of blocking me from viewing your article technology. We're joined by Reaper. Hey Reaper, longtime friend of the show. Okay, so here, let's look at this article briefly from Becoming Minimalist. And look at them, they're so minimalist, they don't even have dots on the eyes in their logo. And let's see about them. Okay, so minimalism seems like a lot of their idea is getting rid of stuff, so then getting rid of personal possessions a lot, so then you have time to focus on experiences and other things. So let's see what this is about. Why experiences are better than things. All right, talking about baseball. According to research, and then there's a linked article. The science of why you should spend your money on experiences, not things. All right, there's science. Experiences result in longer lasting happiness than material possessions. This is the case for several reasons, including some listed below. But in the article provided, the driving argument is that humans quickly adapt to their external surroundings. As a result, the happiness provided by new material possessions is short-lived, because you're saying people get used to it. Over time, people's satisfaction with the things they buy decreases, whereas the satisfaction with experiences over time increases. So why do experiences increase happiness, according to this summary of the article? So memories, and here talking about, right, buying stuff might have clutter, and then that clutter in your living space might hurt your focus, help you not to enjoy the moment, as they require care, attention, maintenance, organization, and so on. Experiences provide greater opportunity to connect with other people, so you could do stuff with other people. I think that one's hard to argue with. Though, of course, if you give people stuff or help people clean or organize or something, then, that could be a useful thing you could do. And then here, this word mindfulness again. Ripper says, I noticed that when people adopt physical minimalism, they also adopt verbal maximalism. I.e., they have a deep need to tell everyone how minimalist they are. That's funny. So one of the reasons I'm bringing this up too is because at some point I thought like it was good to be minimalist in certain ways. So I started to look at like what people have written or talked about with respect to minimalism. Um, like the form I took on minimalism was saying like I used to get maybe birthday gifts and stuff from family, and I would tell people like, I have more shirts and jackets than I could even wear or whatever. So there's no need to give me any more like material possessions. You could give the money somewhere else or help somebody else. I don't really need it. So in this sense, I was trying to practice form of minimalism. They're saying like let's keep the things simple, and I think still like I like that approach of just keeping stuff simple, but it doesn't mean like having no stuff. Rather, the sort of position I found is you want to have like all the things that you'll actually need. So like I have a guitar back there. I'm not like get rid of all possessions because but instead I'm like if I have one instrument I really like and I play it, or even more than one instrument of some different types, then if I actually use these things, then there's no problem with having them if they could be good. But I think oftentimes when people get into like some minimalist bent, they might be like I want to live in like an empty penthouse apartment with just my iPad that I used to become a YouTube influencer. Actually, let's go and Google really quick and let's just search minimalism. This is associated. We had one of the suggested topics. I think I deleted it because we talked about it. But the digital nomad was one of the ideas here. So I'll delete a couple of these topics as we'll be talking about them, unless someone brings them up again. Okay, so like I'm doing a Google search here for minimalism, and we could see what sort of images come up. So we have these pretty empty rooms, pretty modernist furniture. You just have your armchair. You can just sit there and like think, I guess. I don't know. You could just drive a car to like a parking lot of somewhere, and you could sit there and think too. It seems like kind of a photo op here. Okay, I think this is Marie Kondo. She had like she got pretty famous. I think she had like a Netflix show, and then also I think it was Google Translate or something featured her. Could look at the here we could look at this ad really quick.
Marie Kondo is famous for changing people's lives through her KonMari method of organization. She has a television show, has written books, and is a huge star in the United States.
Okay, so I just have to pause and interrupt and say stuff in the video so we don't get a copyright stricken. All right, let's watch her use the Google tech.
Thank you very much for being our first live translate interviewee.
All right, are you ready for Google to speak Japanese? Here we go.
私たちの最初のライブ翻訳インタビューであること
Live 翻訳インタビュー
に感謝します。
I love seeing what sparks joy in other people's lives. What sparks joy for Marie?
私にとっては一人でも多くの方が片付けを終わらせてときめく人生を送っていただくこと、これ
Reaper says, digital nomads are interesting because in some respects they have free agency and means of production and are extremely hard to tie down in a traditional capitalist local economy sense. Yeah, I think so we could talk more broadly about different sorts of lifestyles and other streams, but yeah, like digital nomads, you could say they're not like company employees that are in a very fixed program. So they, I think here hard to tie down a traditionalist capitalist local economy sense, right? Because they're kind of like traveling merchants or something in a way. So I think that the pattern of the digital nomad, you could say, if we look for historical precedents, it's not a totally weird or unknown thing to have people that, rather than being, let's say, agrarian agriculture based, or like a craftsman, like a blacksmith with that big shop, that instead you have people that travel from place to place and sell wares, or perform or do other stuff like that. That might be an interesting topic to look at. All right, digital nomads, you guys get promoted back onto that Alan future topics list, because a lot of interesting stuff there. Okay, so let's just jump back down to minimalism. I'm going to leave this video up, though, because there's some relevant aesthetic parts about this video that I think we could refer back to. So just looking at a couple more articles. So here in their preview image, why buy experiences, not things, is bad advice. Oh, okay, so this person's giving some pushback. And then they show a woman taking a selfie at the Eiffel Tower. These days we're all about racking up experiences instead. Traveling the world, attending music festivals, dining at Michelin-starred restaurants. Happiness, it seems, is no longer found in expensive purses and fast cars, but in getting out, exploring, trying, doing. Research backs up the experience advantage. Studies have shown that we bond over experiences more easily than over material things. Derive more long-term satisfaction from experience. Can link experiences to our identity in a more meaningful way. All right. There's a dark side. The real fading away. We've turned experience itself into a product. Exactly. So we're going to be talking about this, where title of my stream here, selling experiences. So experiences has been commoditized. So you could be a consumer of various experiences. Turning experiences into a particular type of product is the business model that a lot of people have to offer. And when people are chasing experiences, right, a lot of times they are trying to maximize their consumption of a particular sort of product, such as let's say doing some sort of vacationing, some traveling of some sort. Could be looked at as doing a certain sort of consumption, but you're consuming a service rather than like receiving a material object. Okay, so I think you guys get the point. I don't have to elaborate more on how experiences over things is a you could call it a meme. It's a meme that has trended through a lot of media, magazines, advertisements, you name it, all over the place. And one of the reasons is it's pretty clear for people to see how if you just have a bunch of objects, stuff that piles up in your living space, this will not necessarily make your life better. In fact, you might feel weighed down by these things, and I think rightly so. You perceive that all these objects you accumulate could actually make your life harder or worse, and there's a problem that you then have to deal with. How do I get rid of these things, or so on and so forth, as opposed to adding value, right? So it would have been better if you just bought a bunch of stocks, right? Because then your room would be free and pretty empty. But you have your stocks or bitcoins or whatever stashed away somewhere, and then instead of having accumulated a bunch of stuff, then you have some financial digital assets, and then you could enjoy an experience of benefiting from the selling of experiences. All right, so let's continue down our topic here. So experiences as products, I think that's the key thing that's here. So I just wrote 2 paragraphs to look at them really quick. Today we look at the perhaps seemingly harmless notion of selling experiences. This is how the kids get hooked on drugs, television, and blow the big bucks on expensive vacations and various luxuries. So as just kind of a logical extension, you could even see something like drug use even as a kind of experience that you're selling. So you consume the product. If you consume some drug, then it's no more because you consume it, and then the people would pay money or travel or do whatever in order to have some sort of experience. And likewise, we could see how television, media, video games of various sorts, this is also a kind of experience that you're selling. So a ton of money goes into making a video game, fancy graphics, maybe custom soundtrack, all sorts of things. So when you buy a video game, what are you doing? Oftentimes you're buying an experience, and then people will, oftentimes they'll buy like a video game experience, and maybe they'll want to enjoy it with other people as well. So I'm not saying that buying experience is bad, don't ever do it. We're just looking at this whole notion of selling experiences because I think it's a pretty prominent thing in modern times. Okay. And then, so what are these experiences? Oftentimes people are seeking shortcuts to various pleasures. On-demand pleasure without the natural work that is required to earn these things. So just with the examples of like television, video games, stuff like that. So maybe you want to actually experience some kind of adventure or like the thrill of the hunt, like chasing, you're playing your Counter-Strike or whatever. There's an experience that people want from this sort of thing, but it's in this controlled digital simulation box so that you could have a shortcut to like the rush of the hunt, something like that, without actually having the risk of, I don't know, being rammed and gouged by some angry moose or boar or something. And then here I wrote, all generalized conveniences of various sorts as a subtype of experiences. So if you're talking, let's just say like drone deliveries or something, then this too is a kind of experience in that it's like, what if I could just, move my thumb and then lo and behold, tacos arrive at my doorstep, something like that. It's a convenience, but then also you could call that a sort of experience where you get the experience of having summoning tacos on demand. So maybe in the past, like, that would be the stuff of aristocrats or kings or something, but now you too could summon the foods you want on demand. So I've classified various convenience services as types of experiences for the sake of this discussion. Okay, continuing down the stream notes. So one thing I started last stream was to try to have some words of the day. So if you tune in and you watch Alan's stream, you're going to become a classics educated person gradually as I too educate myself. So for today's word, we have the Latin word ego, that ego comes from, and it means I. And then in Greek, it's pretty much the same. Eio, their personal pronoun for I. I didn't realize it was virtually the same in Latin and Greek, but that's the case. You could check out Wiktionary, check the source, confirm what I said. But yes, know that the word ego comes from Latin or Greek first person pronoun. And there, you learned yourself some Greek or Latin today. What a great experience we're having here. So let's continue our learning experience. Okay, so experiences, it's a thing. Experiences over stuff. How is this fitting into our modern world? If you saw the thumbnail preview for this image, I copy and pasted the guy from this now infamous World Economic Forum ad. So here we have 8 predictions for the world in 2030. All right, let's just watch the first point here. Okay, so smiley guy, you'll own nothing and be happy. Whatever you want, you'll rent, and it'll be delivered by drone. Okay, so we don't have to watch through the whole video, but I bring up this video first because it's kind of a meme. People are a lot of people would be familiar with this video. But second, because looking into the future, what sort of stuff do we have to expect? I think that this idea of experiences and services of various sorts as opposed to owning stuff is going to become an increasingly common, popular thing. So, I mean, just how might this manifest materially, right? If we could ask a question like that. Like, let's just say now, right, pretty traditionally, like, I bought a guitar there, and, you know, I have like some books with music that I bought too, so just very normal. You know, I bought classical guitar studies, so I could play music, and I own the guitar, and it's like I have the means of production of this music, so it's very normal. I own the things, I could do the activity. Now, what would a sort of experience type model be like? What that would be is instead, like, think about karaoke. So karaoke, very popular with the Asia people. Let's take a look. Oh, we're joined by friend Trench Matt. Says, yo, good streams, bro. Thank you. Good to have you. All right, so karaoke. What's karaoke about? Probably most people know what it is, but now these days I can't assume what people know and don't know. So one thing too I'm trying to do in this stream is also just document and talk about a lot of cultural stuff that maybe I will take for granted. I'll assume that people know about it, but you know, you talk to a Tide Pod munching Zoomer, maybe they've never heard of these things. Like what's a cassette tape? So for just documentation reasons, I'm pulling up like what is karaoke or karaoke. So clipped compound of Japanese kara, empty, and orchestra. So basically there's a screen and it comes up and there's lyrics, and then people could sing songs together at karaoke or KTV. Just sing as you want in this picture. So over East Asia especially, probably Southeast Asia too, these things are, well, they used to at least be super popular. I'm guessing they're still pretty popular. But often friends might come, you know, share some drinks or appetizers and sing lyrics on TV. So here it looks like Westerners. These aren't Irish pub. These aren't Asia people. But perhaps most popular, this stuff was trending in Asia and Asia adjacent places, like this person in Hong Kong. Okay, so why bring up karaoke? So if we contrast karaoke with like just buying a guitar and playing it like that, so karaoke is like a service. If you go to like a karaoke bar, karaoke place, what happens is you pay to rent a room for like, you know, 30 minutes, an hour. I don't know exactly how they do it. And then you could use their equipment. You could go through their programming and sing the songs. So as a business model, right, if you get a lot of people that go through karaoke, and while they're there, they also spend a lot of time buying the drinks and snacks and stuff like that, then it could be a pretty profitable business. But it's like an experience that they're selling. It's like a musical experience, because instead of you owning stuff, being able to pass on a guitar to people, right? It's like corporate, top-down sort of managed service. And I bet nowadays they have like, if I just search like karaoke streaming, they probably have like online equivalents now, I would guess. Yeah, here's one. So I just searched streaming karaoke. I haven't done this before, but it looks like you could find such a thing. So this, you know, $10 a month, and then you could turn your home, your TV, whatever, into a karaoke thing, and, you know, have your friends over and do it yourself, like in the past and probably still now. the who knows with health crisis stuff. A lot of karaoke bar things, right? And they want to get you monthly subscription. Oh, look here, we have we have the Ouroboros, the infinity again. They can't stop. I'm gonna skip down to a topic just because this came up. Look, I wasn't even searching this, the infinity thing. So I'm telling you guys, these things are everywhere. This is a stream note from a past stream. So I was looking at how this Meta logo for Facebook, they have that infinity sign, which is also the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own title. And then also a similar thing. This is a Microsoft product with their thing. It's there. And then I found I had some people send me things for 3 other examples. So I'll just bring it up again. This one, a tool by the NSA, Ghidra, which comes from the Greek word hydra. It's like a snake eating its own tail. This is a reverse engineering tool. So an Iranian drone crashes, and then you want to find out all the software secrets. Well, you might use a Ghidra tool to unpack, find out what that's about. So that's one creepy snake. Then Arduino, Internet of Things, small chip. Their logo, also an infinity. Also snaking in its own tail. All right. And then there was this creepy robot, Sophia, super creepy mechanical face thing. And then on her shirt, they have this infinity Ouroboros thing going on too. So totally creepy there. So that was in a past stream I showed this. Then I go to this karaoke site, and lo and behold, monthly subscription. Then they have this same symbol, and it's what's the purpose of this? I guess you stay subscribed forever. You give them money forever. I think a business would be happy if they had subscribers forever, just giving them revenue. So I'm not gonna say that that's a bad choice for a little logo there. That's what they're going for, but it's kind of revealing. And I found this too. So this is actually a tarot card, the Magician. So also known as the Magus or the Juggler. And look, this wizard creeper, he's got the same symbol right here over his head. So Meta, they choose this as their logo, thing that looks like the Ouroboros little infinity. And then who has it? The Magician, the Mage, and the Tarot card deck. So, yes, here on Alan's stream, we are peak symbolism detectors, and one of our specialties is unpacking technology, metaverse, and these sorts of current developments as pushed out in the scientific and technology world. And lo and behold, right, the same symbol associated with a magician found copy-pasted all over technology stuff. So technology, magic, seems like it's often coming together as a same package. Interesting. Okay, so let's continue here. Okay, so we went over own nothing and be happy to show how experiences and stuff are gonna. I think it's safe to predict that they're gonna be something that's going to be pushed in all aspects of life, just like how we see karaoke with music. Well, we could think about all sorts of other things that you do. So, for example, let's talk about grocery shopping. Now, if we search for robot grocery delivery, something like this, this is something that a lot of people are developing. So here, did I click on a sketchy link? I was just trying to look at Save Mart. Save Mart's robot. Right, Save Mart, Modesto. I think that's not too far from me in California. But, they're trying to get these little robo-creepers going. You could load them with groceries, and they'll roll down the street, and they'll go to your house. So, grocery shopping, something like that, you might think of it as something you do. Maybe you go with your family. Everyone picks stuff that they want to eat during the week. Maybe you have a plan. I think different families have different ways in which they do grocery shopping. But you could see that all these things, they're being turned into various high-tech services. So, if we look at the nature of a lot of the services, that's one of the reasons here I said that conveniences is a big motivator for a lot of these services that are being rolled out. You present these robots, things like that, and you say to somebody, okay, maybe business, they call it like value proposition or something. We could take a look. Let's learn some business jargon, so we could become rich by pitching ideas in the elevator to people in suits. Okay, a value proposition is a promise of value to be delivered, communicated, and acknowledged. It's also belief from the customer about how value will be delivered, experienced, and acquired. All right, let's add this to our notes. That convenience is often the value proposition. Look, guys, you don't even have to pay to get an MBA. You could get an MBA on Allen Stream. We're learning to fake it till we make it, speaking the business jargon. Tadi Izuka says VOI FYI. I don't know what VOI is, but for my information. Voix. Sounds French. Okay. So, right, we could look at delivery, restaurants, takeout. The value proposition for a lot of these things is a convenience of some sort. So for delivery, of course, someone else is driving the car and stuff, so you don't have to travel. So delivery could be decoupled from food prep. Like if you have just groceries delivered to you, that would be different from like ordering takeout. So somebody might actually want to still cook themselves, but then they might sign up for some delivery of ingredients. Maybe they don't want to pick out all the ingredients. They just want to cook. So you might have that sort of service. Restaurants, takeout. I think one of the big things about restaurants and takeout that perhaps gets overlooked sometimes is if you go to a restaurant or you do takeout, you don't have to clean up. Like if it's takeout, then people just throw away the trash. And then if you're at a restaurant, of course, then part of the reason you're tipping and doing that is because they're doing dishwashing and clearing the tables, stuff like that. But here also I want to add sightseeing as well as a sort of experience. And you could also say a kind of convenience for doing stuff. So you could see like impressive stuff, go to the top of a mountain, do all these sorts of things, and it's kind of leisure in the sense like maybe you don't even have to hike to the top of a mountain. You could just drive to a vista point, right? So it's like you get the convenience of skipping the struggle to get to the top of the mountain, but then you could enjoy the view of the top of the mountain through a convenience route. And I added here, like, even seeing like big buildings and stuff, like you go to the Rockefeller Center. Now, did you do all the stuff that the Rockefellers did to amass all sorts of wealth and look out at your empire? If there are Rockefellers and other elites watching my stream, I'd actually be surprised. That'd be pretty interesting. But I'm assuming that the people that are watching my stream are not high-powered individuals like the Rockefellers. That's an assumption. Could be wrong. Anyways, it would be different if you're that sort of person and you go out and you look and you survey your empire and you're like, I own all this stuff, and it'll take a lot of work to go in careful planning, administration, all this stuff in order to make something look nice, right? But if you're going for sightseeing, you don't put in that work. Instead, you just go there and you enjoy the space. So you consume an experience of enjoying the fact that all this work has been done even if you yourself are not contributing to that directly. Now, on this note, yeah, it's interesting. Like a lot of the cities, especially over the past couple of years, in America, especially, our cities look pretty bad in a lot of places. If you search, like, I'll just go on YouTube. We could look. This is something I do occasionally if I want to virtually visit somewhere. I could do like Los Angeles Street View, something like this. It's a pretty. If you want to actually see how stuff is without actually visiting, there's a lot of people, they just flip out cameras and then they go around and look at stuff, and they have all the fancy camera equipment and stuff. And if you want to see, like, not the magazine curated version of stuff, but to see how things actually are, then it's like, yeah, I mean, this is what LA looks like. A dude in a car with a 4K camera is going out and showing it to you. We're joined by Ross Biden, who says, bottom of the JP lobster hierarchy, looking out on the big lobster food reserves. Yeah. Okay, so is this Ross Biden? It sounds like you were describing what it is to be like a little shrimp looking up at the big buildings of the Alpha Lobster industrialist stuff. Oh wow, they got some animal action. Got some people doing stuff at night. Got some buildings. Yeah, anyway, so a lot of, like, even you could look at an activity like sightseeing. What is it that makes sightseeing fun? What is it that makes sightseeing enjoyable? From my own experience, like, one thought I had for a long time was, like, if I had people to visit or something to do, I'd be happy to visit the most, boring suburb or whatever. It wouldn't matter to me. Whereas to just go to a big city just 'cause, it was kind of like, I didn't do it much. Let me put it this way, that I haven't really just gone and traveled very much by myself, because it really hasn't interested me. Because it's like, what's my point here? To just drain my bank account? Why don't I just put my money into, like, Bitcoin or something? Reaper says, this LA video is very skewed. Well, dude, it's from a guy on his dash cam, so maybe he was trying to go around shady looking neighborhoods or something. But yeah, the main point here is, if you want to get a street view, you could find people going around all sorts of cities and stuff and show you what it is from the ground. So, like, let's look at like Shanghai street view. So a year ago, and then you could see what you could go sightseeing. So it looks like, is this an Apple Store ripoff, or is this an actual Apple Store? It looks very, very similar to an Apple Store. Maybe it's a Huawei store that looks very similar to an Apple Store. Anyways, that's just to say, sightseeing. If I want to see what Shanghai is like, of course you could actually go there, especially if you have someone to meet. But if you don't want to dish out the big bucks on that plane ticket and stuff, I mean, if you just go and you see a video like this, it could be pretty educational on that. Yeah, probably a lot of nights in Shanghai on this street look pretty similar to this in November 2020. I think that's fair to say. So I'm being like a Fed watching the security cameras, except I'm outsourcing the Fed work. Somebody else is holding the camera and giving me that experience. I'm consuming an experience. And now you're consuming me, consuming an experience. We're meta here. We're going meta, guys. We're all going to make it. Okay. So, just describing here various sorts of experiences, and as a note, so I don't think it's bad, of course, to use experiences, various services, not inherently bad, but I think that appreciating the nature of these experiences and things that people might pay for is a very useful thing to do, to understand, especially like, let's just say you're budgeting, you're trying to rein in your expenses, you're trying to find out what you really need to do. Then, like, I'll give an example. I know I got some people that like to do weightlifting and stuff that are watching this stream. A lot of people have decided to have home gyms. Now, what would the reason be to have a home gym? Well, it's like, if you want to most efficiently get your workout, get maximum value, then, suppose you had to drive 20 to 30 minutes to go to the gym, and then you actually only do a workout for 20 or 30 minutes, right? A lot of people basically conclude that it makes more sense to go ahead and put out the initial investment to set up a home gym sort of setup, and then use their own equipment. So actually buy stuff, and then through actually buying the stuff, they're able to maximize the sort of experiences that they're able to get. So while you could go to like a new shiny gym, it might appeal to you at first, look really high class and stuff. If the activity that you're trying to do is actually just lift weights more, then lo and behold, to put forth that actual investment to buy the weights and stuff, that could be better than trying to buy like the experience. Might make more sense to actually just buy the stuff. And then if you buy high quality stuff, did you know you could sell it again later? You could even buy used stuff and then sell it for more money than you bought it for. Did you know? Pro tips, secrets. Okay, so experiences, oftentimes these are what are being sold, and it's a convenience value proposition by which experiences are sold. But as a practical note, what we could often do is not buy the experience, but instead buy the capital, the things that make the experience possible. And through doing that, you could get a lot more value for stuff. And I added another note here too. So I said, for the best experiences, there are no shortcuts. For example, have you experienced the joy of understanding something? So maybe you studied a foreign language, someone says something in that language, and then you actually understood what someone said. That's very enjoyable. That's one of the reasons why I've spent a lot of time studying foreign languages, is I find it fun to, you put in the work, you do the study, and then you get some benefit from it. Then, it's a super cool experience. Anyways, this may take intellectual labor to do. And then I said, refined tastes are often developed. They're working through problems. Only their struggle can we appreciate others' skill. Right, so just building off experiences stuff a lot more. So sometimes experiences, the convenience that they offer is that they package all these things together. But they're putting forth the work to actually understand how these services, how these experiences are put together. You could actually get a better experience from that. So I'll just use cooking as an example. Of course, if you eat good tasting food, then I don't have to explain how eating good tasting food is nice. But if you learn how to cook, and you could appreciate, good food when it's served to you, but also too, you're invested in like learning and developing your own like spice collection or whatever, trying to find cooking methods to build the best thing, then you could have the best of experiences, but that only comes through putting in work. So as a sort of meta point, oftentimes, right, experiences, they're sold through a convenience value proposition, but the same underlying principle for having the best experience is always that through putting labor, pain, suffering, whatever you want to call it, this is the secret sauce to actually having pretty good experiences. All right. Ross Biden says, I personally have a home gym and a gym membership. Honestly, 99% of the time I go to the gym because of the social aspect. Honestly, I think community owned, because some specialized machines are too expensive to warrant an investment on my own. I'm not going to buy a leg press machine just for myself. I'd rather pay $40 a month for a family-owned gym where it's shared. Yeah, so this is an excellent use case of like, why would it make sense to go to a gym? For example, like if you want, let's just say you want to do a lot of swimming for fitness. Like, am I going to say like, dude, just buy your own Olympic-sized pool, bro? Like, no, I mean, obviously, if you want to do a bunch of swimming and you aren't rolling in the money, then the way in order to find a nice place to swim would be to sign up for like a place where they maintain a nice swimming pool. Or the leg machine here too is interesting. A friend on this show, I don't see him here in the chat yet, Yogin, he does music. He's learning how to play the organ, like, with his big pipes and all of that stuff. And most people, I just have like my little wooden guitar here. So that's fine to just own and do myself. But if you wanted to play something big like an organ, well, you kind of need to have access to the facilities that would house such a thing. But yeah, and then the social aspect that's being brought up too. So oftentimes one of the benefits of using a service would be through using the service, you could connect and network and do all that sort of stuff. So I know people, for example, that have signed up for like a rock climbing gym or something. So if you go there, you practice, you do your training, and then you see a lot of the same people there all the time, then that might be a like pretty cool way to work on your strength, and also to meet a lot of people through doing like a good wholesome activity. So in this sense, though, so we're talking about like experiences, then the convenience that you're offering is like a joint location that you're allowed to go, that you belong, and that you're like a paying member and stuff. You sort of calculate, you think about it, and then in your head you say, yeah, it makes sense for me to have a membership at, say, this climbing gym. Then yeah, that's excellent. That would be better than like you just buying all this specialized equipment and trying to make your own rig in your own house, especially if it could be potentially pretty dangerous. Might be better to outsource to other people. Cool. So actually that's a good transition for the next section. So the next section I have here on the stream about selling experiences is this idea of solipsism. So solipsism, from Latin solus, alone, and ipse, self. And here I'll just read a paragraph I wrote. There's a danger of spiraling into our own experiences. Rather than addressing others' needs, we collapse inward, focusing only on our own feelings. This can cause people to become anxious, angry, etc., when others don't conform to the demands of their feelings. For instance, someone may be scared of something, and if everybody else isn't also scared of the same thing, then this person might regard everyone else as an idiot. So just an example, like if we talk about the gyms or the music or something, how might somebody sort of spiral into experience solipsism? So, and I'm talking about this from personal experience, admittedly, that like one of the problems that I have had, and I would say, to some extent I still do have it, trying to work through these issues, is I could become very interested in something, have experiences, but if basically the experience gives its own reward to me, but then I can't really share it with anybody else, it's not really doing anything else, then the value of that is kind of capped, and you and your life collapse inward, as opposed to you having a richer and fulfilling life by being able to share and go outward. So as an example, like I keep on pointing to my guitar, so like I taught myself how to play classical guitar, and actually only fairly recently have I really played it for other people much, but for a lot of the time I spent learning how to play guitar, it's just kind of been me by myself, because I enjoyed doing it sometimes, and then that was that. Now, there's a danger to this, so I'm not saying like don't do anything by yourself and learn alone, because I think a lot of times basically we have to do that. But if there are opportunities, like this gym example, right? If you're going to go to the gym, you're going to do stuff anyways, why not include other people in it? So doing that, it might take some sacrifice on your part. It might detract from some convenience in the sense that maybe you just want to get in there on your own and do your own workout. But if you think beyond just like, what's your purpose? My purpose is to like maximize my workout, but you are able to combine various activities, like I want to meet other people and other friends, and I also want to work out, then maybe sometimes you have to wait 10-15 minutes sometimes because your friends are late or something. That might actually be a price that you're very happy to pay. And then it might actually benefit you a lot more in that if you see your friends doing some activity all the time, then it won't be like, hey, let's go hang out and like eat hamburgers together, because you're happy to see your friends because you work out together or something. Then that might be like enough social contact, interaction, and stuff to maintain friendships with some different sorts of people. So that's cool, right? Reaper says, would posting more on social media fix this inward collapsing problem for you? Well, okay, I mean, I've said it since the beginning of the stream. Like, one of the reasons I started doing the stream, and I'm continuing to do the stream, is there's all sorts of stuff that interests me. I like to write. I like to think about stuff. So I said, if I'm going to do this anyways, might as well broadcast it on a stream. Because if there's any value that's coming out it just for me, and I do it in this format, including other people in the conversation, even if sometimes it might like say stupid stuff on accident, it'll be helpful. It'll be edifying for me, and then hopefully for other people that are watching this too. In that purposely, overtly making and trying to focus the activities that we have, and making sure that we're checking with others, that we make stuff social. It could be the best protection about spiraling into solipsism. So what you could do is purposely include other people and not think that you're superior and being more efficient or something. It could be good. All right, Ross Biden says, the amount of times I've done legs 2 days in a row just so I could work out with someone who was doing legs. Yeah, so maybe you need to maybe on your leg day you could like only do calf raises for like 2 hours one day. You just sit there and do calf, or I guess not sit there, stand there. You could do like half leg day. Maybe that will solve that problem. All right, so I'll read this last paragraph I wrote. Watch out for people selling experiences that appeal in the solipsism model. I myself have fallen into this, putting effort into things nobody asked me to do, nobody else cares about. No matter what you do, try to serve someone besides yourself. If you're married and or have children, it is natural for you to serve your family. The specifics of what you're doing aren't so important as meeting others' needs. Stuff is a bit less simple for single people. I think in my case, you can concentrate on making yourself useful to others rather than on gratifying yourself. And ultimately, if you're just trying to like make yourself feel smart, like you're a genius or something, then it's only going to go so far. Oh, so the example I'll just bring up. So like for my own childhood, my own life, right? One thing I did when I was in grade school is I learned how to juggle. And, there's not that many people that are interested in juggling at any, random school. Like maybe there's some school that are filled with nerds. But I think that just in retrospect, like one of the psychological reasons why this was something that I did was you could be the best at doing something. It's by virtue of no one else doing it. But nevertheless, it's like you could have this sort of shortcut, the experience shortcut of being at the top of something. So, you're the only person that practices juggling in a given group, then, whoa, you're the star. You're the best juggler. But, nobody asks you to juggle. And, these people might refer to you as, like, the person that does the juggling. And that's one thing that happened, like, growing up and stuff. It'd be like, oh, people I would meet, maybe some family member or something, like 5 years would pass, and then it would be like, oh yeah, do you still juggle? That would be like the one thing that people would remember, just because I took some time to be a solipsistic nerd and like practice juggling and stuff that no one asked me to do just cause. But ultimately, like something like that, you get your reward for what you do, because you kind of take a shortcut for your enjoyment, for your experience. But then what becomes of it? So if somebody is asking you to do that, they're asking you to fulfill the role, then you at least make two people happy, right? The person that asks you to do it, if you're able to fulfill their needs, and then you have your own personal satisfaction from putting in the work for that experience. But one trait I see with a lot of nerds is they will totally dive into something, put forth a lot of effort into some given domain, and then what could unfortunately happen is people might become like bitter or resentful or something, because people don't pay attention to their efforts that they're putting in some form or another. And I think it's not always conscious. Like I'll give another example from my life of something that I'll put it this way, that there's worse things I could have done, but it wasn't the best use of time. So like one thing I've done is I've studied a bunch of like Korean. Now I'm like Chinese American, I'm not Korean. There's Korean people near me I was growing up and stuff, so not completely useless, and it could be useful to and fun for me to like understand more of what people are saying. But nobody ever asked me to do this, and there wasn't any function or anything waiting for me to perform like Korean speaking in any capacity. It's not like I married someone that's like Korean and their parents would like me to speak in it. It was kind of just like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. I'll learn that. So like I know a bunch of Korean, and it's like, is it useful? I would say at this point in my life, no, not really, not at all. And like, what good will it do? Like I could show people that I know some Korean. So as I said, it's probably better than like doing drugs or something. But I would fall under here. I would say that this sort of solipsism with experiences where you labor and you try to do something to sort of just serve yourself. You're collapsing in on you and your own interests, but nobody else really asks you or cares if you do it. Then the ultimate result of that, I think, is that you spend a lot of time and effort that might be much better spent with something else. And I think like the approach that I took, so talking from my own experience about stupid stuff I've done, one thing I did with like studying Korean was a lot of it I would just study by myself. I would like read stuff or like watch stuff or whatever. And I would try to practice with people, but a lot of people like, if we could talk fine in English, they didn't really care to practice it. If you achieve a certain level of fluency, then people are, if it's easy for the person you're talking to speak with you in the target language, like let's say my Spanish is really good, I start speaking Spanish with somebody, well then they're happy to speak Spanish because it makes things smoother and easier. But if I'm like a beginner and I'm trying to make someone practice with me, then it's like I'm kind of asking them to do a service, to go through a lot more effort. I'm making their life more difficult, basically. And that's why a person might hire a tutor or something, because you're paying them to be patient, to put up with you while you're trying to do something. Anyways, that would be an example, like for my own life, where I would say I would fall into what I would call kind of experience solipsism, like just trying to do my own thing. And like I got my reward for doing it, right? It's like It's just like if you get really good at a video game, you feel good when you win or something. You have the reward for doing it. But you got to look, of all the things to do, why would you do that thing? So that is why, for example, here on this stream now, with these like words of the day, right? It's like if I'm going to learn some Latin and Greek, stuff like that anyways, then why don't I also share it with you all? So we have a shared context. A lot of English words come from Latin or Greek origin. So it's not just like, hey, we're all going to learn Swahili together. It's not something that's just totally unrelated. Greek, Latin, underpinning a lot of the stuff of our language, civilization, and all that. And then, two, I think it's something that's quite easy to learn piecemeal. Like, you learn a little bit by bit. I'm not going to start, like, streaming, only speaking Latin or Greek or something. That wouldn't... it would make my low viewership go even lower, probably. So, that's that. Okay. So that's what I have to say for this solipsism subsection. Then the final section I have here, I titled, "Would it be easier to just cook French fries for your friends?" Oh, we have a comment really quick. Rosta Biden says, "I took Spanish in high school up to year 4. I didn't get much use out of it, but I worked in a warehouse and I got to talk to a Mexican lady who didn't speak English. Super interesting person." Yeah, so that's cool, right? You learned a skill and then you found like a use or an application for it. And then just by, then your study actually has a purpose, because now you could use it to do something useful. Whereas like if you just started to learn Klingon or like, write an Elvish script or something, then you're falling into like nerd solipsism. And I would be like, dude, just don't do that. Don't waste your time. Okay. So next section, would it be easier to just cook French fries for your friends? So here I'm going to be talking about kind of minimalism. So I'll just read my paragraph and offer some comments. So, appreciating that our tastes often aren't that complicated can help us more quickly and effectively meet our needs and get on with doing other stuff. For instance, if you are very picky about taste and want certain specific foods, well, obviously this can get very expensive and cause lots of problems. Now, if you realize that you just want salt and oil, like you admit, like, really, I just want French fries. Hopefully not seed oil like canola oil. Probably not very good for you. Then you can just get yourself some French fries, which wouldn't be so hard to cook yourself or from scratch, and spare multiplying the cost to get something fancier. Like, you're not going to have to drive, 2 hours to some specialized restaurant doing some food tourism or something. All right, then I continue. The sale of experiences often relies on distraction. Getting people to pay for far more than they actually need or use means the house makes more money. And so just some examples of where inefficiencies come up where people are paying a lot more for stuff that in reality nobody really cares about. You might as well just eat French fries, right? Just keep it simple, keep it cheap, and get to the core of the matter, which is, friends want to meet together. So just like choose a bar and like have a beer or whatever. You don't have to do something ultra fancy. The importance of the meeting is that the friends are meeting. Not that if somebody does have an idea, does have a good place to go, you shouldn't do that, but to focus too much on that to the detriment of the core business of something, then that's no good. So as an example, some inefficiencies like games or quote-unquote fun at work, especially if nobody actually uses these things. So especially if you worked in like a tech type job, a lot of times people try to throw like office sort of fun events, but in reality these things are just quite a drag, and I don't think anybody being honest with themselves really likes them. Maybe the HR people. I don't know. I never like this sort of stuff. There's this YouTube channel. This guy brought it before. Josh Fluke. He does a good job documenting this stuff. So like in this video, he's ranting about how here, Josh employees are happy to stay after work for games. They feel valued. So you might get pressure to do these sorts of activities. But really, at the end of the day, if you just look at what you want, what your coworkers actually want, what people actually are trying to do, then it might be like, would it just be easier to cook French fries for your friends? Like, what is it that you really want? And it could be like at a work environment, people just want to do their work, be polite and professional with each other on the job, and then people just want to go home and like do their own thing. So don't try to make the work more than it has to be. Don't try to tack on all these experiences that just cost money and add complication. In this sense, it's like being a minimalist, maybe being simple is a better word. That's often a winning solution, I think. So when people are trying to sell experiences, oftentimes it takes some time if you think about it, and it's like, oh no, that's actually going to make stuff way more complicated, and it's not really going to contribute anything. Okay. And then another example I had here, annoying or burdensome interfaces. So if it is more of a pain to make use of a service that is supposed to be helpful than to just do things the old-fashioned way, they're fail. For example, it is often easier to just transact in cash than using stuff like Apple, Google Pay, etc. Nice try, technocratic overlords. So, like if you were just having a simple, small fundraiser, maybe the most efficient thing you could do, let's just say you're talking with a group, let's say there's like 100, 200 people, then you could just say like, hey, everybody, we're going to have this mixer thing, and we're going to be serving pizza. Please bring cash. Now, just saying that simple line, like, please bring cash, and then if people, let's assume people actually do it, or you have some means by which people could exchange or get cash or, borrow or whatever, then that could make your life so much easier and succeed at throwing an event, getting stuff done, than if you tried to, set up accepting all these different payment methods and, paying your 5% PayPal transaction fee, like all of these things. Oftentimes the stuff becomes much more of a pain. It becomes much more expensive when people try to add what could be marketed as a convenience in many sense. If you just cut off a lot of those things, then life could become much easier in a lot of ways. All right. So that concludes that section. I think pretty straightforward. The last subject section I have here is about virtual experiences. So just as a recap here, general topic, selling experiences, talking about my own experience about how just being a internet autist, being kind of solipsistic in your stuff, a lot of times that's a losing formula. And I think especially if you're a nerd, like I'm trying to reform myself and not be a nerd, then you need to watch out for that tendency in yourself. And then this section too, just saying like in what manner do a lot of things get really complicated. One way in order to do more, right, is often shaving off stuff, making things simpler. Then it's a good way to just blaze ahead and do more. And I'll just say, like, one of the reasons I do my streams this way is if I got too obsessed with like videography, fancy graphics, things like that, then sure, that could be cool in of itself. But if your main objective is you want to put out content, you want to be able to engage with people, talk with people, and so on and so forth, then to just have this simpler format where it's like, okay, I just, set a time, flip on the camera, have like a couple of different scenes, and then that's it. It's a much easier way to do it than if I tried to go like the high production value route. I would be spending a lot more time not on the core, you could say the core business of the stream would be like having content. So when I'm preparing, most of this stuff would be like coming up with these notes and stuff rather than fiddling around with technical things. The goal is I'm focusing most on the content, stuff like that, and then try to deliver that in an efficient way. But certainly if you looked for like individual videos and a lot of the topics I might talk about, you might find a lot more like polished content, so to speak. But you could ask, what value does that polishing contribute to? And you might get something kind of fuzzy or hand wavy like, well, it makes it a better experience or something. I don't know. I'm having pretty good experience with you all, so no complaints on my side. Reaper says, why are you trying to unnerd yourself? Because I don't think it is the proper way to live. Okay, virtual experiences. So, going back, looking at the World Economic Forum video that you'll own nothing and be happy. I think in the future, and this is building too off Mark Zuckerberg and the metaverse. One thing we're going to see a lot more of is this push to have virtual experiences of various sorts. And we could already begin to see this in healthcare and areas like that, various places. For example, if you could have like virtual counseling, virtual therapy, virtual, all these things. There's people that are trying to get all this virtual stuff rolling. Now, who is this virtual stuff useful for? Are you getting the best of service? Is virtual the best way for you to go? So I came up with some bullet points here. Okay, when you're in a virtual space, nobody is running around and getting physically hurt. So let's talk about exercise and gym, because we were doing that before. So if you run a gym and someone gets hurt in your gym, right, you probably have some degree of responsibility for that. Now, if everybody is just in the room, like flailing around their arms with their VR controllers, you know, ooh, I'm doing VR, and then like they smack over and break a vase, is it your problem? No, I mean, they're responsible for them and their space. So the virtual stuff is very useful from a sort of top-down perspective in that you get to outsource a lot of the liabilities to your people that are paying for your service or using their service, rather than you being responsible or taking charge of those things. It's not your problem. It's their problem. Okay, then with like video games, software solution type things, rules are automatically enforced by the software. So you don't have to, worry about how is it that I'm going to enforce this rule. Someone's being bad, they're thinking bad thoughts. You just block them from the service and you say, you have violated the terms of service. And you might even have like automatic filters if people use certain words and so on and so forth. So a lot of the enforcement is automatic, and that could be very convenient from a top-down perspective. You could say, on our platform we use like AI technology to combat hate or whatever. You could do all that stuff. Okay. All right, a general point about video games. So you're training people to get more comfortable in virtual spaces, more comfy to be on a familiar online platform than outside in the loud, scary world. So this goes along this idea of a lot of digital services, digital world. It's this very sanitized, controlled space. So we could even think like outside with the street lights, crossing the streets, stuff like that. Then unlike the wilderness or something, it's rule governed. Certain things are supposed to be predictable. So the digital is supposed to be like one step above that, where like it's totally safe, nobody's getting hurt because in a bodily sense, right? You aren't actually doing very much. I could be like sitting in this here in my room having all sorts of experiences with like affecting very little in the outside world in terms of I've just been sitting in a chair, right? So I have all these experiences interacting and so on. And in that sense, you could say I'm neutralized, you know? I'm contained. Like Alan's not going to, I don't know, cause trouble outside because he's just sitting inside. So that's another reason why virtual stuff is useful. And then finally, a lot of times you hear criticisms from social media and stuff. People talk about like, oh yeah, people comparing themselves, toxic, and then also a pipeline to push advertisements of various sorts. So you get people in a digital space, basically like Instagram. It's like your own private road that you drive down, and then people could pay to put up billboards on like your own little thing that you're driving down. So getting people involved with all these digital spaces, then you put them in the space where you could give to the highest bidder, right, permission to show people all sorts of images and things. So in your own life, just by yourself, right, you could choose to not look at these things. You could choose to escape from the world in various forms, such as saying like, I only check my phone at this time or this other time. But as you get people more used to and spending more time in these virtual interweb metaverse spaces, then more and more you have the opportunity to condition them with whatever patterns you want, whether that's selling products and services or having particular attitudes or, you know, whatever it is that you want. So you could convince people, you know, what's really cool is you should be a minimalist and just really embrace, I don't know, doing stuff on the metaverse and then meeting up friends to have hipster craft IPA beers. So if you have hipster craft IPA beers and you hang out on the metaverse and you eat less meat, you're exactly where we want you to be. So if you have some idea for people like that, then insofar as you continue to plug yourself in and see the things that people are telling you to see in these spaces, then they have the ability to transform you into the sort of person they want you to be, because in some ways you're inviting that interaction. All right, and then I already talked about this Magician Tarot card. And regarding experiences, this guy Timothy Leary, famous for like drug experimentation type stuff, he also got really interested in the internet. I pulled up this word before, cyberdelic. Here, from cyber and then psychedelic. So getting high off the internet. I don't know how else to say it. But that's to say that we look at the selling of experiences. In many ways, it's similar to like drugs and stuff, right? If people are doing drugs, they're trying to get a particular experience. In the same way, we could look at how digital services and products, it's a different form, but a similar thing is often the value proposition that is being offered. So that about does it for... Oh, here. One last comment. So the technocratic overlords are the wizards over time. So once again, referring to this Magician Tarot card, where he's got the infinity above his head, like the meta logo. The physical and spiritual worlds. So here, the magician as an object of occult study is interpreted as symbolic of power, potential, and the unification of the physical and spiritual worlds. So for the wizard nerd overlords, the physical and spiritual worlds are meshed together in the digital. So the metaverse, like combining your material needs, also your attention, your mind, just focus them all together into this digital space where the nerds control experiences, right? then you got to be aware that you are diving into the wizard nerd domain. So virtual experiences is not just like, oh, it's nothing, that's kind of lame, oh, that's fun sometimes. Know that there's all sorts of creepy occult imagery and stuff going on, and you could see in a pretty I would say literal controlled sense how the technocratic overlords have wizard-like control over those spaces. So don't fall under the spell of the nerds if you do partake in these spaces. Rossbein says, ideal humans eat soy and play Ark. Is Ark a game? What's Ark? Survival Evolved. So you go around and you ride dinosaurs and fight for survival. But you're having an experience of fighting for your survival. But meanwhile, you're like sipping the Soylent while pretending that you're hunting. You're LARPing as a hunter-gatherer in the metaverse. Okay, let's skip ahead to some news stories and end the stream discussing these things. So, a question from Reaper. Reaper says, Alan, how do you feel about the use of traditional parts of society, i.e. churches, for example, using virtual reality? I would say that it's just like here on YouTube. The model I'm trying to apply is like everything is familiar, not using any sort of tricks, bells, and whistles. It's like, talking and there's comments. The format of everything is pretty transparent, and then there's no trying to get people worked up or emotional or like immersed in any extent. So I think that using VR and stuff, like how people use Zoom to communicate, like I don't see any problem with that. Just like I don't think that there's anything wrong with like a telephone. But I think that the problems that people could start to face is in general, like let's just talk about this idea of chasing or selling experiences. So a lot of people, they might get involved with some sort of spiritual or religious practice because they're chasing an experience of some sort. And my view is that I think that is very dangerous. So if your religion or your spirituality amounts to you trying to chase some experience or you trying to be like a wizard or something, then all this metaverse virtual stuff might be pretty appealing to you. But I would say that that whole project from the beginning is something that you shouldn't do. So if Mark Zuckerberg or whoever is offering like religious experiences on the metaverse, like, I don't know, come here, see the Buddha and open your third eye or something, I would just say stay away from it. Don't engage for it. And like from the outside, people might look at it and sort of laugh at it. But I would say too that you don't know what sort of deep programming and stuff goes into these things. And you might laugh at it today, and then someone close to you might get sucked into it, might get pulled into it tomorrow. And so I would say like don't treat these things lightly or just like a joke, and really stay. You could learn about them, right? But don't get pulled into it, because I think that there has been a lot of research and stuff into psychology. We could even talk about like MK Ultra mind control, stuff like this. Of course, Timothy Leary, all these people that do creepy stuff. There's a lot of money and things that are going into these things by the same people now that run the internet. So I think that these things aren't jokes. They are very dangerous, and one should not dive into metaverse's experience seeking. Okay, Reaper says, yes, so just kind of having it online, but not in a weird sense. Well, so my own religious views, right? You're not going to church if you're watching a video of church. You could be, you could speak with people of the same religion or something, but I don't think it's the same. Reaper says, seems VR church might get people that have a hard time going to church, like old people, disabled, rural, to participate more. But I can appreciate you wouldn't want it turning into NFTs of relics, etc. I think most internet communities are getting sick of the whole NFT thing. Yeah, I just think that, like my own religious beliefs is I think that it probably wouldn't work. It'd probably be like a very rare exception or something that something would happen through some kind of VR broadcast. But I don't know. That's just my feeling. It makes me uneasy, put it that way. But I am by no means an expert nor qualified to give instruction in religious matters, so I will not do that, except to say that stuff that I know is bad, say like stay away from that. So don't chase, don't try to become a wizard. Don't try to chase experiences in the metaverse. You could use the metaverse for just practical, normal stuff, but don't try to open your third eye in the metaverse or something like that. Probably won't end well. Okay, so that's a good transition for our news story here. So let's look at a story from Firefox New Tab, our fountain of weird stories that they want nerds to think about. Can a cat have an existential crisis? Okay, Ross Biden says, I love the widespread hatred of NFTs on the internet. It shows we still have some soul left. So I think one very interesting part about the NFTs is I've heard some people point out how the way that NFTs work is kind of how fine art in general has always worked. So the NFT idea is nothing... like the analogy I heard was, for example, you could make a print of, say, the Mona Lisa, right? Some famous painting. And that would kind of be like copying and pasting an NFT. Because what the NFT is, it's just like some link or some reference that proves that you have ownership of something. But you could, of course, copy and download images of famous artworks and stuff like that. So I think in the sense that the NFT thing, like if you think about it and then you think about how like artwork or even just generally intellectual property and a lot of this stuff has worked for a long time, it's not just NFTs in particular, but it highlights the absurdity of a lot of the like value stores and stuff that we have in our world today. So in that sense, like I think, NFTs and stuff, I'd put money in it in order to make money off of it, but I wouldn't, like, I don't think that they're, like, I don't believe in them, I guess is that what I say. Like, I would use them speculatively as a place to pull money in and out of, but I don't really care about, like, owning whatever that means, owning an NFT. But I would say that for just a lot of artworks and things in general, you could compare the NFT scene with how stuff has been going for a long time. It's just like some people would criticize cryptocurrencies, and then it's like, all right, we're criticizing cryptocurrencies a lot. Why don't we talk about like fiat money, like the US dollar generally? And then it's like, okay, as clownish as I thought like Bitcoin or whatever is, actually just learning a little bit more about the Federal Reserve and stuff, it's like we were living in clown world all along. It's always been clownish since at least, mid 20th century or whatever. Then stuff took a super clownish turn. So I do think NFTs are like silly in a lot of ways, but also me personally, I think like a lot of intellectual property and all sorts of stuff that people treat as like serious topics in our world, I think those things are pretty silly too. Okay, so we have an important issue to talk about. let's look at, can a cat have an existential crisis? As recommended by Firefox when I open a new tab through their Pocket Explorer. So the question: treating my cat for depression caused me to question the state of anxiety in animals and us. So this person adopted a cat. And then here's a picture of a cat. And here's a caption. So Lucas is the name of the cat, I think. Cat's meow. Lucas did well on antidepressants, but he started avoiding his food that contained them. His aggression, though, declined with play and human attention. Interesting. So, I brought up this article to just show this whole pet thing, just animals, people, how are people and animals different? Sometimes people will say like, oh yeah, isn't it absurd how much money someone spent on, a vet or whatever. I think a lot of these issues, though, if we look at the underlying cause, you could ask the question of, so what are animals? What are people? How are they different? These are big fundamental questions that I think are important to have like some idea about. So if you think like fundamentally like humans and cats, like we're all the same, we're all just carbon-based life forms. It's just, people are one species and cats are another species, but species are just, fluid or whatever. Then, you're on the fast track to become a vegan, because then it'll be like, okay, well then who's to say, life of a person is more valuable than the life of a cat? Especially that person. I don't like that person. That person's mean, but I like my cat. My cat's not mean to me. So I would rather save the cat than that person. So on and so forth. So once people are sort of drawing like humans and animals in a sort of moral equivalence terms, you could get all sorts of trouble that comes from that. But here, right, it's like this article is about a person that's treating their cat, trying to use like pharmaceuticals, apply similar methods to how a lot of modern healthcare will treat people, and they're doing it on the cat. So looking at this article, I mean, on initial read, it's like, oh, that's kind of bonkers. But then on the other hand, it's sort of revealing of these general sorts of approaches that people take. And I would say that one trend I think that's kind of not good in our society is looking at people through a kind of behavioralist lens. So if you look at people as kind of the Pavlovian dog, so how do we just like tweak their environment? How do we just tweak this, tweak that in order to make people be happy? How do we, too cluttered. Okay, let's try minimalism. Get rid of some of the stuff. Just tweak the environment, tweak this, tweak that, in order to make a person happy. Even ideas like this, the sort of assumptions, the approach of these things, I think it is wrong, because I think people are different than animals. I believe, people have souls. There's a lot more going on with people than is going on with animals. But an article like this is revealing and showing that a lot of the modern, the so-called enlightened scientific approach is basically to equate people with animals. So just as you might treat people in a very animal-like way, doing psychology and stuff, Pavlovian dog style, in the same way you might try to treat animals like you treat people, because it's all the same in some sense. All right. Reaper says, cat article makes me sick. People that force feed soy to cats make me sick also. Well, the big thing going on is people having pets instead of families. That's a weird thing going on, at least America today. The Rasta Biden says, yeah, Reddit child-free is yucky. And people forgoing families for trips to Disney World. Yeah, so I think we could go back here too for this general topic of experiences, right? So it seems we're reaching an agreement, on this stream that there's no shortcuts. You know, if you want to have the enjoyment, the pleasure, the joy, whatever you want to call it, happiness of having a family, right? There's all sorts of pain and work and things that have to go into that. You can't just shortcut it by having a pet dog. Now, that's not like a moral imperative for everybody, to have a family. And of course, a lot of people, they cannot have children, and so on and so forth. But it would be different, for example, to like adopt or to do something else, to put in work to get various pleasures, joys of life, as opposed to trying to do the shortcut and just say like, oh yeah, we go to Disneyland with their pet dog. That's trying to get like everything for free without paying. Dog's not going to complain. You just sign up. As long as you pay the money, you could get it. Whereas the best, most important things that we could have an experience that you could build up, there's no substitute out for the work that people put into it. And I think even too, like looking at I don't think there's a moral imperative for people to have children per se, but it's like, if you aren't having children, what are you doing instead with your time and resources? I think that's the question. And I think, I'm not a parent, so I can't speak from personal experience, but obviously it will take a lot of sacrifice, like you giving up your interests to serve somebody else. So that's why here in this little experience blurb, I was talking about how, no matter what you try to do, try to serve someone else besides yourself. If you're married and or have children, it's natural for you to serve your family. And the specifics of what you're doing are not so important as meeting someone else's needs. So maybe your kid, wants you to go somewhere. Well, it doesn't matter exactly where that place is, but if you could honor your kid's request and, help them do that with them, then it's valuable just because somebody else asked you to do. And I think one of the things about the dogs and stuff is like, a dog is not rational and stuff like a human being. So a dog is only really going to ask you like what for, like food and to rub its belly. Dog's not going to ask you for very much, whereas a person might ask you some very difficult things. And of course, there's great value in being up for the challenge and meeting what people have to ask. But what could be hard is, and this will go under the solipsism and the danger of being nerds. I think, oftentimes what nerds do is they collapse inwardly in of themselves, just meeting themselves and their own needs. And in doing that, they're trying to get like a shortcut to happiness in a certain sense. But I don't think it will work out. Okay. Reaper says, the problem isn't that they are training pets with drug for depression. It's that we treat humans with drugs for depression instead of trying to have people live fulfilling lives. Likewise, perhaps the cat or dog should be outside running around after squirrels instead of forced inside most of the day. People really don't want to be told that they are kind of imprisoning and enslaving their pet as comfort animals. Right, so it's like the pet, you could see that there's a similar approach that people and pets are similarly being given an approach that is making the people miserable as well as making the pets miserable. People are not meant to be in these sanitized software environments where there's no danger of getting hurt. You're just in this safe, controlled space. Rather, people are born with free will, and they need to be able to exercise their freedom, including facing challenges, doing things that you might view as risky or scary or whatever. People have to do all these things, not just be in a digital environment where you could just, oh no, it didn't work. Okay, recompile. Okay, it didn't work. Let's try again. Okay, let's try again. All right, let's run the simulation again. Right, that's kind of the sanitized nerd coward fantasy of how to approach the world and all its problems. but that's not how we're made. That's not how the world is made. And you could only do that sort of approach within the fake metaverse matrix nerd wizard reality, but it doesn't reflect the actual nature of how stuff is. Reaper says, and now they don't let their kids play outside also. Yeah, that's another big thing. And you could look at how cities and stuff are designed, right? I mean, in many cases, legitimate fears like broken glass bottles, cars going over. So if somebody doesn't let their kid go outside, I mean, as the environment and stuff outside is made more and more hostile, then unfortunately it becomes more and more reasonable to see why people wouldn't want that to be the case. That their kids are running around playing outside where, yeah, they could get cut by glass. There could be all sorts of bad things that might happen. And as it becomes more and more expensive and difficult to get a living situation and just a nice, normal, pleasant environment, then it is no surprise that like people are having less children and stuff. Ross Biden says, all the Zoomers on SSRIs and the like always fiending for Nick or TikTok addicts. I've never seen a well-adjusted peer on anxiety antidepressant medication. Let's see. Less children equals less neighborhood kids. For existing kids equals less social interaction equals metaverse. Yeah. And I'll just add on what Ross Biden here is saying that I think that the education stuff has had a big role to play in all of this, and that a lot of the reasons kids are getting on a lot of meds and stuff is because of academic, school-related things. For some reason, like, oh no, they can't focus, so give them pills, or kids anxious about will I ever get a job? Can I ever get married? All these sorts of questions could really do a number on a kid, and so people often get medication, start to have all sorts of problems because their whole environment is telling them these stories, and then you look at publications, on the interwebs, or whatever, articles, and it's like everything they're being told is reinforcing those sorts of narratives, and then before you know it, it's just like, well, at least in the metaverse, I could experience a second life, right? That's why this game, Second Life game, it's like everything sucks, but in Second Life, then I have another chance. So one of the ways in which you plunge everybody into getting obsessed with like fantasy nerd stuff, sci-fi nerd stuff, is so much pressure and trauma from the outside, then they might even say, I will knowingly embrace some kind of fantasy as opposed to trying to engage the challenges of the actual world that I'm facing. Reaper says, TBH, they probably don't squat either. Yeah. So I think like oftentimes let's be a positive stream here. Then what is the sort of way out of falling into these traps, right? It's like, instead of chasing the experiences, don't look for like experiences, the kind of reward at the end. But if instead we look at ourselves and we look for what is the sort of work we could do, what are good, wholesome activities, what are ways we could work on ourselves and serve other people, then looking at those things is how you really beat like depression and all this stuff, right? We be like super hard on yourself and always seek to do better and look for work and ways to serve other people, and doing like that will be your route to happiness, not weird drugs and stuff. So voluntarily taking on suffering, and that's a Christian idea, right? Like you voluntarily take up the cross that you're given. You drink the bitter cup that you're given, and you willingly do that. So you're free. You aren't forced to do it, but you choose to go the hard way. You choose to put in the work. You choose to suffer willingly, and through doing that, that is how you ascend, not through plugging your brain into computers and taking drugs. All right, let's look at a couple more articles. Okay, Reaper says, At the end of the day, one really wonders if America would benefit from everyone going through a 6-week boot camp that included nothing digital. How about instead we go through a 6-week boot camp where everything's digital? In fact, we could go through a 2 weeks to flatten the curve 2-year program where everything's digital. Okay, so here's an article from Gallup, as Gallup polls. Bet on it. 37% of desks will be empty. And then it shows an office guy. It's in a pretty dim office. It's pretty empty. And this article is talking about how there is a big shift for remote generally. And a lot of offices very empty. And I'll just kind of confirm this from my own experience, like walking around my city and visiting other cities. I mean, there's just leasing signs everywhere, and a lot of buildings that were probably full of people, you know, all lit up in decades past. They look abandoned. I mean, I haven't like actually trespassed and like snooped around these buildings, but it definitely looks like there's all sorts of vacancies around. So I think just from on the ground, you look around, it's pretty clear that we're seeing some really major shifts of how people work, where people work, and so on. Reaper says, oh, a 2-year metaverse lockdown. Yeah, so I think, so here's a kind of prediction. Klaus Schwab and these people, they've been talking about like cyber attacks and stuff. So I think that in the future, we do have it in the books that like everybody becomes more reliant on all these online services. Then if there's some kind of shocker where, let's just say, Google or someone goes down for like 48 hours, it doesn't even have to be super long. All it will take though is like a shock like that, for example, to like crash stock markets and do all sorts of stuff, because everything's wired together. I think that, let's just say, I wouldn't be surprised at all, and I'm actually expecting there to be some kind of trauma event like that. Like if I just heard, oh, you know, China launched a cyber attack and like now all our internet's down, like a bunch of this finance stuff, people got hacked, blah, blah, like if that happened, of course a lot of people are going to be freaking out. There's going to be trouble all over the place, but I'm not going to be surprised at all. In fact, as I said, I'm kind of expecting that sort of thing. All right, here's one last. This is my last story. Yeah, here's my last story. So here, Twitter acquires Quill. So I'm not exactly sure what Quill is. Let's just take a look. Quill.org. Okay, so writing and grammar activities, assuming this is the same Quill. Anyways, Twitter acquired it, and this guy who writes this Daring Fireball site, what does he have to say about this acquisition? So basically he's saying that, right, Twitter, where exciting new projects go to be shut down. I think that with a lot of people in tech especially, we have this observation that these big companies, it's just like Facebook and Instagram, little companies that might seem kind of cool, they arise and then they get absorbed by these bigger companies, and then the bigger companies who might be very involved with governments and stuff, then they will decide what to do with some given company. So maybe, like, let's just say you really liked YouTube. Like, YouTube's super cool. You know, we're on YouTube. But then Google buys YouTube, and it's like, all right, well, now YouTube is Googled because Google bought it. And that, I think, continues to be a pattern that we're going to see with a lot of stuff. As little projects and things might come up, then we expect that the big companies and things will try to absorb and use what they can of these smaller services, including perhaps just like shutting down stuff. So what is what should our response be to that? I mean, so here we're on YouTube. My own personal view is you should deal with and interface with the platforms that you intend to use. Personally, I'm not sure, like, put it this way, the internet service providers, all these people, they're all connected with central intelligence agencies and all this stuff. So I don't have any like aspirations for saying, oh, we could create another parallel, better free internet or something. So I'll use sites like, BitChute or Gab, stuff like this. But I'm not super hopeful about these things like I think a lot of people are. But yeah, that's just my own personal view now. Maybe I'll be wrong. We'll see. Reaper says, if Slack went down for 36 hours, corporate America would realize their employees are more productive when they talk to each other less. Ross Biden says, I hate how smartphones extend our communication. It used to be I'd go home, but now I'm expected to have Teams notifications for school updates. It's overwhelming having school even when you're home. I mean, I'm just a difficult person. Like, usually, like, here's my phone. I just put it face down, and I just check it, like, a couple times a day. And then when I'm on a computer, it's easier to manage Windows and stuff, like on a desktop computer. So probably, like, Discord or whatever is perhaps the easiest way to contact me quick. But, yeah, I think that's one of the hard skills that all of us have to learn is, like, how could you come up with like a policy, like a self-management communication sort of policy so that you don't give undue power to stuff over your attention. And I think oftentimes like the way that it's done is very simple. It'll just be like a group project for school. You might tell people like, okay, for these 2 hours, we're going to work on this project, but let us not be strapped to it. It's not, nobody's going to answer their phone at 1 a.m. Kind of do things in an orderly, controlled way, as opposed to doing this like always online sort of approach that a lot of people default to. Yeah, Ross Biden says, I'm getting a flip phone. Yeah, and maybe that's the best solution is like your technology itself helps you to do what you want to do, then that could actually be a very good solution. Anywho, that about does it for the content today. Thank you all for joining this stream. Selling experiences. I think we had a good talk about experiences, and you all have given me some things to consider, to think over. So, of course, like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, and feel free to send content you want me to look over my way, and I'll try to cover it on future streams. Thank you.